The light in our Puget Sound living room, filtered through the thick morning mist rising off the water, always felt like a promise. A promise of the perfect, peaceful life I had built, brick by emotional brick, next to the man I believed was my soulmate. Our house in Seattle's Queen neighborhood was a monument to success and stability. Floor-to-ceiling windows, reclaimed wood, and the faint, comforting aroma of Ben's meticulously brewed single-origin coffee. Every detail was curated, just like our lives. My husband, Ben, was the epitome of the modern, successful tech executive. Handsome in a rugged, intellectual way, always calm, always measured. He had that quiet, powerful charisma that made other parents at Leo's school meetings lean in closer, desperate for a slice of his perfectly balanced existence. He was the anchor, the rock, the provider, the man who had swept me off my feet and given me the one thing I truly treasured, our son, Leo. Leo, at 8 years old, was a miniature version of Ben, at least physically. Dark, serious eyes, a scattering of freckles across the bridge of his nose, and a slight, studious frame. But where Ben was unflappable, Leo was a sensitive, keenly observant child, prone to deep thought and the occasional, theatrical worry. I often laughed and called him my little philosopher. This particular Tuesday morning, the air in the kitchen felt heavier than the usual mist. Ben had already left for the office, leaving his breakfast dishes neatly stacked in the sink, a small but telling detail of his conscientiousness. I was packing Leo's lunch, trying to wrestle a sandwich into a bento box while listening to the distant drone of the city coming to life. Leo was sitting at the massive kitchen island, swinging his legs, his gaze fixed on the empty chair where his father had been just an hour before. He wasn't humming or drawing, which was his usual preschool routine. He was unnervingly still. "Are you excited about the field trip today, sweetie?" I asked, attempting to inject a dose of normal cheerfulness into the room. They were going to the Museum of Pop Culture, and Leo loved the science exhibits there. He didn't look up. "Mom." His voice was a low, careful whisper, the kind that children use when they are trying to share a huge secret with insufficient volume. I leaned against the granite countertop, trying to match his serious tone. "Yes, honey? What is it?" He finally lifted his head, and the intensity in his dark eyes made the haze on my arms stand up. It wasn't the look of a child who had forgotten his homework or who was afraid of a bully. It was the look of a survivor trying to relay crucial information. "It's about Dad," he said, pushing his untouched toast away. I chuckled gently, trying to lighten the mood. "What about Dad? Did he forget his phone again? I can run it up to his office." Leo shook his head, once, sharply. "No. I saw him last night. After you went to bed." "Oh, did you need a glass of water?" I asked, already moving to fill a tumbler, mentally dismissing this as a typical nocturnal visit. "No, he wasn't in the bedroom, Mom. I was going to the bathroom, and his office door was open a little bit. I saw him talking on the phone." I paused, placing the glass down. Ben often took late-night calls. His job was demanding, involving global teams and different time zones. "That's normal, sweetie. It was probably just work." "He wasn't talking about work, Mom." His voice was different. Low, like rock scraping. And he was using different words. Leo leaned forward, his small hands clutching the edge of the island. He said, "The cover is holding, but the boy suspects." "He said that, Mom." A shiver, cold and sharp, traced its way down my spine, but I immediately locked it down. Ben had a dry, dark sense of humor. He played complex, elaborate games with Leo sometimes, making up spy scenarios. This was probably one of those. "Oh, he's probably playing a spy game, honey," I explained, forcing a smile that felt brittle. "You know how silly Dad can be with his secret agent voices. He knows you like spy stories." "No," Leo insisted, his voice rising, a tremor of genuine distress entering it. "Mom, this wasn't a game. He wasn't looking at me. He was standing by the window, and he was staring out at the trees, and he wasn't smiling. His face was hard, and his back was straighter than normal. I walked around the island and knelt beside him, wrapping my arms around his slight body. Listen to me, Leo. Your dad loves you more than anything in the world. He is your dad. He's Ben. He's the man who reads you 3 stories every night and takes you fishing every summer. Everything is okay. I held him tight, feeling the rapid thump of his heart against my chest. But as I hugged him, a small, insidious thought slipped past my defenses. I had noticed Ben's back was unusually rigid lately, and he had stopped meeting my eyes across the dinner table. But that was stress, right? The pressures of the VP title. Leo pulled back, his lower lip trembling, but his eyes remaining intensely focused. He lowered his voice again, drawing me in conspiratorially. Mom, listen. He's not Dad. I don't know who he is, but he's wearing Dad's clothes and he uses his voice, but it's wrong. That's enough, Leo, I said, the gentle tone gone, replaced by a sudden, firm authority. I needed to shut this down before he spiraled into anxiety. You need to get ready for school. This is just a bad dream, and we are not going to talk about it anymore. Do you understand? He nodded slowly, defeated, the light of warning in his eyes dimming to a deep, troubled shadow. I watched him trudge up the stairs, and the pit in my stomach deepened. Why did I have to be so firm? I should have been more reassuring. I was failing him. I went back to the kitchen and stared at the impeccably clean counter where Ben had stood just hours ago. He was such a perfectionist. Too perfect, perhaps. I picked up his coffee mug, rinsing it under the tap, and noticed a faint, raised scar on the rim of the mug, a tiny, silvery line, barely visible, that I was certain had not been there yesterday. Maybe Ben had accidentally scratched the expensive ceramic. But then I remembered something else. Ben didn't have a scar on his left index finger. I had known that hand for 10 years. But just now, while I was washing the mug, I realized the small, faint line wasn't on the mug. It was on the pad of his left index finger, the very place he held the handle. I stood in the silent kitchen, staring at the faint scar on my husband's coffee mug, but the real disquiet was settling over my own index finger, recalling the small, pale line I'd seen on Ben's hand. He hadn't had that scar before. I was certain. 10 years of holding that hand, I knew every callus, every knuckle, every line. A sudden, deep chill settled over me, one that no Seattle morning sun could penetrate. I quickly dismissed the observation, of course. People acquire scars. It was absurd to think otherwise. He was probably just helping Leo with a small woodworking project in the garage and got nicked. Why was I letting Leo's ridiculous spy story infect my rational mind? I busied myself with cleaning, scrubbing the pristine countertop until it shone, trying to scrub the unsettling image of Ben's hard face away. When Ben texted me from the office, meeting swamped, love you and Leo. Dinner late. XO. It was the usual, affectionate, slightly distant message, but this time, the perfect normalcy felt like a deliberate performance. I replied with a cheerful emoji and spent the rest of the day preparing for my own evening, working on my freelance graphic design projects, while a tiny, insistent voice in the back of my mind repeated Leo's warning, he's not Dad. That evening, Ben returned later than his text suggested. He walked in, shedding his perfect suit jacket with the easy confidence of a man who owns the world, but his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Rough day, Sarah. The Chinese team is having major issues with the new platform integration. He spoke of his work in vague, impressive terms, which was typical. I found myself watching him with a new, unwelcome scrutiny. His gait was right. His laugh was right. But when I asked him about the scar, my voice was deceptively casual. Honey, did you get a cut? I noticed a little mark on your finger this morning. He didn't flinch. He just gave me a tired, pitying look. A cut? No, SAR. That's been there since I was 7. Fell off a bike trying to look cool for a girl named Bethany. It's practically a family legend. He held up his hand, his eyes holding mine, daring me to challenge his memory of his own childhood. I immediately felt foolish, ashamed of my momentary lapse into suspicion. Gaslighting, even unintentional, is the most effective tool against doubt. He was right, I was wrong. I was stressed. Leo was stressed. The scar must have been too small for me to notice until now. But later, as Ben settled in to read Leo a story, I caught an interaction. Ben was holding a book, a beloved, tattered copy of The Hobbit. He always held it with his right hand supporting the spine. Tonight, he was holding it awkwardly, bracing it with his left. And when a page threatened to stick, he didn't lick his right thumb to turn it, a habit I'd teased him about for years. He used his elbow to brace the book and his right hand to swiftly flip the page. It was a minor adjustment, a tiny mechanical difference, but it was wrong. The knot in my stomach tightened. The next morning, Leo came prepared. He hadn't forgotten his observation. He lied about the scar, Mom, Leo whispered fiercely as I tied his shoes. He told me once he got it when he was 15, climbing a fence. My heart hammered against my ribs. Ben had told me he got it when he was 7. 2 different stories for a tiny piece of skin. I pushed the fear down, trying to be the calm, rational adult. People forget things, sweetie. It's just a little scar. It's not just the scar, Leo insisted, looking towards Ben's closed home office door. He has a box. In the wall. Behind the painting of the mountain. Dad showed it to me once when I was little, but he made me promise not to tell anyone. He said it was for secret agent missions. But last night, I asked him about it, and he said I must be imagining things. The mountain painting. I knew the one. A massive, abstract canvas of Rainier, dominating the wall in Ben's office. I had always hated its size, but Ben loved it. I had never noticed any access point behind it. That evening, after Ben went to the gym, his 2-hour, religiously observed ritual, I ventured into his office. The room smelled of leather and expensive wood polish. Everything was in its place. The massive Rainier painting loomed on the wall. I walked toward it, my palms sweating. My fingers searched the thick, textured canvas, pressing along the edges. Nothing. It was bolted firmly to the wall. I felt the familiar wave of foolishness wash over me. I was being paranoid, driven by the anxious fantasy of my 8-year-old son. I was about to retreat when my hand brushed the lower right corner, and I felt a slight give. I pressed harder, and a faint click echoed. The canvas swung out just an inch, revealing a faint seam in the drywall behind it. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't a secret agent mission. It was a lie. And behind that lie, there was a hidden space. But it was locked. A combination lock, small and silver, secured the inner compartment. I quickly pushed the painting back into place, listening for the soft thunk of the lock engaging. I ran a hand through my hair, trembling. He hadn't just forgotten a scar story. He had deliberately denied the existence of a hidden, locked compartment in his own home. He had lied to his son. What was he hiding? The lie cemented the seed of doubt. I had to know. The next day, while Ben was ostensibly at a leadership offsite, I started digging. I didn't want to break into the locked box yet. I wanted to know who I was breaking in on. I started with the most mundane, his public digital footprint. I searched for Ben Hayes, his name, adding Seattle and the names of his high-profile tech companies. The results were perfect. LinkedIn profiles, company press releases, a few glowing mentions in tech blogs. Too perfect. Then I tried combinations, Ben Hayes plus college, Ben Hayes plus family history. Nothing. No old Facebook photos, no cheesy college group shots, no alumni directory mentions, no distant cousins asking for money. The past 6 years were a crystal clear, high-definition image of a perfect life, but everything before that was a vast, terrifying void. I remembered a casual remark Ben had made once about living in Boston briefly after college, something he had immediately changed the subject from. I typed Ben Hayes plus Boston plus 2007 to 2010 into the search bar. An immediate hit. But the name was slightly different. Benjamin Hayes. The photo looked eerily similar to Ben, same dark hair, same jawline, but the eyes seemed younger, less guarded. The article was from a decade ago, a local Boston newspaper, reporting on a small-time entrepreneur who had founded a failed software company. The article mentioned he had disappeared shortly after the company went bankrupt, owing minor debts. My hands were shaking as I compared the photo to one of Ben on my phone. They weren't identical, but the resemblance was unsettling. Had Ben simply changed the spelling of his last name? Or was this Benjamin Hayes the person my husband used to be? The perfect Ben Hayes of Seattle had no record of a failed startup, no debts, no past life in Boston. He was an immaculate creation. The next morning, Leo was unusually quiet, watching me with that knowing, intense gaze. I avoided his eyes. I couldn't tell him I was digging, but his warnings were now my fuel. I called the number of the old Boston newspaper, pretending to be a genealogy researcher. I managed to track down a former associate of the Benjamin Hayes mentioned in the article, a retired lawyer named Mr. Davies. I used a pretext, asking about the final days of the failed company. Mr. Davies was surprisingly garrulous. Benjamin Hayes? Oh, poor chap, a brilliant mind, but he got in too deep with some shady investors. Then, poof, gone. Vanished off the face of the earth about 10 years ago, right after a big funding round went south. The creditors had a field day. We thought he did a runner. I took a deep breath. Mr. Davies, can you describe him? The Benjamin Hayes you knew. The lawyer's description was vivid. Dark hair, tall, very intense eyes. But he had a distinct nervous habit. He always ran his thumb over a very noticeable, jagged scar right here. The lawyer described the exact location of the scar, on the webbing between the thumb and forefinger. My blood ran cold. My Ben, the perfect Seattle Ben, did not have that scar. The man in the office was missing a crucial piece of physical history, but the man from Boston had it. This meant two terrifying possibilities. Either the Ben Hayes I married was an identity thief who had scrubbed his own past, or he was a replacement for a man who had vanished. I hung up, leaning against the cold wall. The man who had disappeared in Boston was named Benjamin Hayes. The man who appeared in Seattle was named Ben Hayes. And the man in Seattle had a faint, new scar on his index finger, a phantom scar that should have been on his thumb webbing, or perhaps belonged to another man entirely. The details weren't adding up, they were multiplying into a monstrous, unsolvable equation. The reality of my suspicion hit critical mass that night. Leo screamed. Not a frightened yell, but a primal, guttural sound of pure terror that ripped me from a shallow sleep. I bolted upright, Ben already scrambling out of bed. We rushed into Leo's room. He was thrashing in his sheets, sobbing uncontrollably. Ben got there first, pulling Leo into a tight, comforting hug. I watched the interaction with a renewed sense of dread. Ben was being the perfect father, murmuring soothing words. But Leo didn't respond. He only tightened his grip on Ben's shirt, pulling himself closer, yet simultaneously trying to push away. Then, he started to speak, his words jerky and blurred by tears. He said I could never tell. He was standing over the other man. And the flashlight was on his face. And there was red. Everywhere. Leo was hyperventilating, his eyes wide and unfocused, clearly caught in a horrific flashback. I finally managed to pull Leo from Ben's grasp and cradled him myself. What man, sweetie? Tell mommy. What did you see? Leo pointed a trembling finger right at Ben. Him. Dad. He did it. He was yelling, and the man was on the floor, and he told me to go back to sleep, and his voice was so loud. Not Dad's voice. The rock voice. Ben stood there, pale and rock still. He looked at me, his eyes full of a chilling mixture of concern and something darker, something that looked almost like resignation. Sarah, he's having a severe nightmare. He's confused. We need to calm him down. But Leo's terror felt too real, too specific. He wasn't describing a movie, he was describing a scene, a moment of violence. I held Leo close, my eyes locked on Ben, and in that moment, I believed my son. The man standing over us was capable of terrible things. And Leo had witnessed one of them. The next few days were a blur of forced normalcy. Ben was overly solicitous, Leo was quiet and jumpy, and I was perpetually on edge, trying to appear calm while planning my next move. I knew the only way to confirm Leo's vision and my own escalating fear was the hidden box behind the Rainier painting. I needed the key. Leo had mentioned the box was part of a secret agent mission when he was small. That meant the key might be somewhere he could find it, or somewhere associated with the games they played. I searched Leo's room, not in the obvious places, but the places I knew Ben would choose for a childish treasure hunt. I checked under loose floorboards, inside old stuffed animals, and behind posters. Nothing. Finally, I started cleaning out the garage, sorting through old winter gear. I picked up Ben's ancient, oversized parka, the one he wore only for shoveling snow. It was heavy, and as I picked it up, something small and metallic clinked against the concrete floor. It was a key. Not a house key, but a tiny, simple brass key, the kind used for old-fashioned diary locks or jewelry boxes. It was threaded onto a loop of cheap, faded embroidery thread, which was knotted tightly. I felt a surge of adrenaline so powerful it made me dizzy. I rushed upstairs and grabbed the parka. Tucked deep into the seam of one of the massive pockets was a tiny, handwritten note on a slip of paper, folded into a minute square. I carefully unfolded it. The note was in Ben's handwriting, the familiar, elegant script I knew well. It read, "For the safe box. Hide well, Agent Lion. Always under the watchful eye." Agent Lion was Ben's old nickname for Leo. And the watchful eye? The painting of Mount Rainier. The key belonged to the hidden box. Leo's warning, the missing scar, the different voice, it was all converging on this tiny piece of brass. Ben was at the gym again. 2 hours. It was my only window. I was shaking so badly I could barely insert the small brass key into the lock behind the painting. The lock clicked, and the inner compartment swung open with a faint, dusty creak. It wasn't a large safe, just a deep recess in the wall. My fingers trembled as I reached inside. The first thing I pulled out was a thick, sealed manila envelope, heavy with corporate stamps. I tore it open. Inside were legal documents, non-disclosure agreements, several bank statements in the name of Elias Vance, and a signed document stipulating the transfer of all assets from Benjamin Hayes to Ben Hayes upon his disappearance. Elias Vance. A new name. A new person. A knot of ice formed in my chest. Beneath the documents, there were 3 different government IDs, driver's licenses and a passport, all with Ben's current face, but different names, Elias Vance, David Keller, and John Smith. The dates of issue were recent, showing a rapid progression of identity changes. The final item was a small, brittle newspaper clipping, folded and tucked into the back corner. The headline screamed, "Local entrepreneur Benjamin Hayes missing after failed funding round." The sub-headline mentioned police were investigating possible foul play but had no leads. The date was exactly 10 years ago. I stared at the clipping, then at the photo on the passport of Elias Vance, and finally, at the door that led to my living room. Elias Vance, the fugitive, had stolen the identity of Benjamin Hayes, who had disappeared. But Ben Hayes, my husband, was the man who had shown up in Seattle 6 years ago, claiming a clean slate. The missing man in the clipping, Benjamin Hayes, was the man Leo had described the nightmare about. He hadn't been dreaming about Ben. He had been remembering a trauma. A murder. My son had witnessed his father's identity thief kill the real man. The reality was crushing. The man I loved, the father of my child, was Elias Vance, a wanted man, possibly a murderer, who had stolen the life of the real Ben Hayes. I knew I couldn't call the police yet. If I did, Elias would know immediately, and Leo and I would be in danger. I needed more than brittle paper. I needed a confession or solid proof of the swap. I decided to play his game. He had a scheduled 2-day business trip to San Francisco starting the next afternoon. This was my chance. I needed to act calm, collected, and completely oblivious. That night, I was excessively affectionate, making his favorite dinner, asking gentle, generic questions about his meetings. "You'll be back Thursday evening, right, honey? Leo misses you when you're gone." Elias, I could no longer think of him as Ben, looked at me, his eyes searching my face for any sign of change. "Yes, darling. Thursday evening. It's unavoidable, but I'll bring you back some Ghirardelli chocolate," he promised, his voice the smooth, reassuring Ben voice I'd fallen in love with. I smiled, a perfect imitation of the naive, loving wife. But inside, I was mapping out my search. His home office, which I had only briefly explored, had to hold more. Specifically, I needed to find his means of contact with the outside world. A burner phone, a secret laptop, anything that tied him to his life as Elias Vance. I pretended to go to bed early, laying perfectly still beside him, listening to the steady, infuriating rhythm of his breath. I was terrified, yet also strangely energized. My perfect life was a lie, but my survival instinct was violently, beautifully alive. I was no longer Sarah, the graphic designer. I was Agent Lyon's mother, hunting a predator in her own home. Elias kissed me goodbye the next afternoon, told Leo to be good, and drove away in his sleek, black SUV. As soon as the garage door closed, the air in the house seemed to crackle with tension. I waited exactly 15 minutes before heading to the office. I was methodical this time. I closed the blinds, turned off the phone ringer, and pulled the painting away from the wall, leaving the hidden lock exposed. My hands went straight for the desk. I disassembled the keyboard. I checked the back of the monitor. Nothing. Then I started on the filing cabinets. Everything was labeled perfectly. Taxes, investments, Leo's school, house deeds. I pulled out a drawer labeled Client Contracts 2022, and noticed the file folder at the back was thicker and newer than the rest. Inside, I found the expected contract, but tucked beneath it was a small, slim, metallic object, a burner phone. It was charged and immediately turned on, showing a few recent, unsaved numbers. I tucked it into my jeans pocket. I then moved to the large, built-in bookshelf. I knew Ben often kept a bookend slightly askew on the bottom shelf. I pulled out the bookend and pressed the section of the shelf it had been hiding. Another soft click. A shallow compartment, disguised by the dark wood, slid open. Inside, there was a stack of thin, encrypted USB drives and a meticulously organized file. The file was titled, BH, Final Disposition. I opened it, and the contents left me frozen, confirming the darkest part of my fear. It wasn't just a stolen identity. It was a documented, orchestrated assassination and replacement. The file contained photos of the real Benjamin Hayes, badly beaten, dated 10 years prior. It contained a copy of Ben's birth certificate and social security card, showing the real documents had been stolen and repurposed. Most chillingly, there was a signed affidavit from a doctor detailing the facial reconstruction surgery done on Elias Vance to match the features of the deceased Benjamin Hayes. The new scar on his index finger was noted as a minor surgical complication. The scar was not his, it was the surgeon's. I sat on the floor, surrounded by the wreckage of my marriage, the file still clutched in my hands. Elias Vance. A man who had literally carved off his old face and body to become my husband. The level of premeditation was staggering. The file detailed the timeline. Elias, running from a major financial fraud charge, had discovered the recently bankrupt and vanished Benjamin Hayes. He had intercepted Hayes, killed him, and then systematically stolen his life, assuming the identity of Ben Hayes to create a new, untraceable public persona 6 years later in a new city. The true Ben Hayes was the missing entrepreneur from Boston. My husband was a phantom, a construct of corporate fraud and murder. I went back to the hidden box and pulled out the old IDs. Elias Vance, David Keller, John Smith. 3 lives, all leading to Ben Hayes. This wasn't just a simple crime, it was a complex operation. The NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, was signed by a private investigator named M. Thorne, who had apparently facilitated the identity shift and the final disposition. Elias wasn't alone. The real Ben Hayes was the man Leo saw lying on the ground, the victim of the rock voice. Leo had suppressed the memory for years, only for it to surface as his growing emotional antennae began to sense the dissonance in his world. My son hadn't had a bad dream, he had a core memory of a violent crime. I had dismissed a traumatic memory. I felt a profound, burning guilt. I had the burner phone. It was my last piece of leverage. I needed to know if Elias was still connected to his past life. I opened the phone and scrolled through the call history. Just 3 numbers. 2 were generic delivery services. The third was labeled simply, M. M. Thorne, the private investigator who signed the NDA. My heart pounding, I retreated to the master bedroom closet, buried myself under a pile of linens, and called the number, disguising my voice with a low, husky whisper. I had to assume the line was tapped or recorded, so I had to be careful. A gruff, impatient man answered. Yeah. It's about BH, I whispered, using the file acronym. The man immediately lowered his voice. You shouldn't be calling here. Is it compromised? His wife, I managed, letting the fear in my voice sound real. She's asking questions. About the scar. She's getting closer. The boy is talking. The man paused, a deep, unsettling silence filling the line. The index finger? Damn it, Vance. I told you that was sloppy. Look, if she's sniffing, you need to neutralize the situation. You know the protocol. Get her to sign the papers and disappear. Don't let the boy expose you. Neutralize? She's too close, I pressed, trying to pull more information. She is the leverage, Vance. Don't do anything stupid. The money transfer is ready. Just get the divorce documents signed, and walk away clean. She knows nothing about the new identity in London. We're ready to shift you again. London. Neutralize. Divorce documents. He wasn't talking about murdering me, not yet. He was talking about a clean financial break before he vanished into a 4th identity. I hung up the phone abruptly, my hands trembling. The connection was clear. The man on the phone knew Elias, knew the cover-up, and was ready to help him disappear again. I was still in the closet, formulating a plan, a complex scenario involving a prepaid phone and a midnight dash, when I heard the garage door grind open. My blood ran cold. It was Thursday morning. Elias wasn't due back until evening. I heard his footsteps in the kitchen, the familiar heavy click of his expensive Italian shoes. He called out, his voice unnervingly cheerful. Honey? Leo? I'm back early. The San Francisco team sorted the mess out. Surprise. I quickly tucked the burner phone into the deepest corner of the linen closet, pushed the files under a pile of shoes, and scrambled out, trying to smooth my clothes and compose my expression. I met him at the bottom of the stairs, forcing a wide, surprised smile. Ben. You're early. That's wonderful. He smiled back, a dazzling, empty smile that didn't reach his eyes. He dropped his briefcase, but instead of embracing me, he walked straight past me, towards his office. He wasn't even tired. He was energized. I followed him, my heart hammering like a trapped bird. He walked into the office, his eyes scanning the room. He walked to the bookshelf, and I froze. The bookend was still slightly ajar, the compartment barely visible. I hadn't had time to push it back completely. He turned, his face utterly devoid of expression. "You know, I thought I misplaced a folder. It's strange. The one I left here, the one about the BH client acquisition, seems to be gone." The facade had shattered. The Ben Hayes I knew vanished, replaced by the Elias Vance I had just discovered. I don't know what you mean, honey," I stammered, backing away slightly. He closed the distance between us, his gaze becoming lethal. "Don't insult me, Sarah. You were in here. I felt it. And when I called him about the logistics change, he mentioned a nervous call about a wife asking about a scar. You think you're smart? You think you can steal my life's work?" He grabbed my arm, his grip impossibly strong. "The only person who leaves this house is me, Sarah. And you and the boy are staying right here. You'll sign the papers, and I'll be gone. But first, you're going to give me the burner phone, and you're going to tell me exactly what your son saw 10 years ago." Panic flooded me, but I remembered Leo, who was playing quietly in his room. I had to keep Elias distracted. 10 years ago? "I don't know what you're talking about," I whispered, stalling. Elias laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. The real Benjamin Hayes. He had everything I deserved. The intellect, the investors, the clean slate. I just had to expedite his departure. You know what Leo saw? He saw me making a choice. Survival. I made Ben's mistakes disappear, and then I became a better version of him. He pushed me against the wall, but I saw my opportunity. On the side table, within easy reach, was a heavy marble paperweight. He didn't deserve to live. He was weak. Elias snarled, his voice indeed that rock voice Leo had described, deep and raw with venom. I had to replace him to finish what he started. And you, Sarah, you were the perfect cover. The loving, oblivious wife. As he leaned in, his attention focused on his cruel monologue, I grabbed the paperweight. "Leo!" I screamed at the top of my lungs, knowing he would hear the distress and know to run to a designated safe spot. Run to the neighbors, now. The moment Elias flinched, turning toward the sound of my panicked call, I brought the heavy marble down, hard, on the side of his head. He staggered back with a cry of pain, his hand flying to his temple. That was my cue. I didn't wait. I bolted out of the office, grabbing my phone from my pocket. I heard him recover and start running after me, his breath ragged. I saw Leo already halfway down the front steps, his small body fueled by fear and memory. I ran out the door, slammed it shut, and didn't stop until I reached the street corner, dialing 911, my voice screaming into the phone. My husband is an imposter. He's a fugitive, and he just attacked me. He murdered the real Ben Hayes 10 years ago. I looked back. Elias was standing on the porch, holding his head, staring at me with a look of pure, murderous hatred before the sound of distant sirens made him retreat back into the perfect, lying walls of our home. The arrest was a blur of flashing blue and red lights. They found Elias Vance hiding in the cellar, bloodied and defeated. The evidence from the hidden compartment was irrefutable. The IDs, the signed affidavit, the photographs. The real Benjamin Hayes was finally accounted for, 10 years after his disappearance. I spent hours giving my statement to the Seattle police, relaying the full, terrifying narrative. The phantom scar, the locked box, the 3 names, and Leo's haunting memory. Leo was questioned gently, his memories finally validated by the police. He was safe. He was the hero. The moment I truly felt frozen wasn't when Elias was led away in handcuffs. It was 2 days later, standing in the cold, empty, sterile kitchen of our house, retrieving a box of Leo's toys. I picked up a photo of Ben and me on our wedding day. His smile, so genuine, so full of promise, stared back at me. And I realized, I had loved him. I had loved Elias Vance, the construct, the facade, the murderer. I loved the man who brought me coffee, who helped me raise my son, who told me I was beautiful. The perfection I had cherished was merely the flawless performance of a sociopath, a role played to perfection to secure his new life. That was the moment I froze, realizing that the love I felt was entirely based on a character who never existed. My life was not a mistake, it was a target. The recovery was long. We moved to a small town outside the city. I went back to my maiden name. Leo was in therapy, slowly processing the trauma, but he was resilient. He was finally just an 8-year-old boy again, not a witness to a murder. We are still living under the shadow of the truth, but we are alive. I look at Leo now, drawing pictures of superheroes and dragons, and I see strength. He tried to warn me. He was the only one brave enough to tell me the truth about the man who was wearing his father's clothes. And because of his courage, my own frozen life is finally, slowly, beginning to thaw. The nightmare is over, but the quiet knowledge that a monster slept in my bed for 6 years will remain with me forever.